You don't have to look far online to see brands like Airbnb, MailChimp, Pinterest, Revolut, and OnlyFans have dropped their script logos in favour of much less creative and much more malign sans-serif fonts.
At a glance, it seems like hand-drawn or script logos are on the way out,
And corporate design is taking over. I'm not even sure you need graphic designers anymore, when all you need to do is type out your company name in a sans-serif font. They're not the only ones too, as other digital companies include Trello, Elementor, Thumbtack, FanDuel and Epidemic Sound, plus a bunch more that aren't tech companies like HelloFresh and Omaze. These types of logos were definitely on trend when social media and Silicon Valley startups were on the rise in the mid to late 2000s, with many companies likely following what was working. Social media used to be a daft novelty that only children would use. These companies weren't really taken seriously, and I can't imagine anybody would take Twitter seriously if they were still using their first logo.
Online bank Revolut had a very similar logo to Airbnb. It stood out against other banks for sure, but felt quite childish. As this was a company you were meant to be trusting with your investments and savings account, so a logo like this doesn't really give you that impression.
The new more plain logo, often shown in blue or black, does feel more mature and sophisticated, though a lot less creative. They did retain the R from the old logo, as that's still used as the app icon now.
Airbnb was another high-profile company that dropped its hand-drawn logo, and Twitter definitely noticed.
It looked like a zoomer, it looked like automation, it looked like a vagina. It's cool to hate Airbnb, so no matter what change they made, it would receive some kind of backlash. The introduction of a sans-serif wordmark was also part of the change, and I'm running out of things to say regarding sans-serif fonts. They took a page out of Spotify's branding book, and it worked as part of the identity, despite how generic some of it felt. While several of these companies are using a similar style, it does make sense sometimes. Everyone has a gut reaction to every logo, and the previous ones may have given the wrong first impression. But as for Pinterest, I really can't think of a reason to go full corporate. If there was one platform where the old logo made sense, it would have been here.
But you can still build a highly successful startup or tech company without a sans-serif logo and with a script.
These obviously include Instagram and brands in the creative field like Dribbble, Marvel Apps, Creative Market, and even Canva. A company worth $40 billion and is so successful it forced the hand of Adobe to create its own content creation tool. They've proven that a simple smart script can work really well. Instagram's original logo, not that one, was a script font called Billabong. It had a hand-painted look to it and felt quite unrefined. The later update simply tidied up the existing logo so it would be easier to read when scaled down. The change was familiar but different. Given that many know Instagram by the app icon, not the wordmark, this one likely slipped under the radar for most.
There are plenty of brands that have retained their vintage logos over the years. These logos were once very common in the 1800s and early 1900s. Easily the most well-known faceless corporation with a decorative logo is Coca-Cola,
albeit a highly modified version of the one from the late 1800s, while Paramount and Budweiser have just flattened their logos, which work really well. Other brands that have been simply refining their script logos include Boots, Campbell's and Balsam, with brands like Cadbury's tidying up and simplifying the existing signature logo. Nowadays, these logos project heritage and experience. A friendly reminder these companies have been around for decades. The Ford logo still has that classical feel, in a time when car brands are chasing trends in the EV revolution. They can also evoke a sense of style, and in some contexts can feel more premium. There's a reason you'll see this style all over wedding invitations. Or they can make a company feel older than it actually is, helping to create that vintage, timeless feel. Providing the original logo was decent, most of these are likely in a single colour too, another small victory for flat design.
Images like these may lead you to think that sans-serif fonts are taking over, but there are a number of companies rebranding that include vintage, retro or odd logo designs. These include companies with a heritage that are reverted to a vintage style, which gives them that old-timey feel, such as dairy company Hartzler, established in the 1950s, and Tillamook, established even further back in 1909. But even if the company was created quite recently, it helps to make them feel a bit more vintage. Golf brand Edward & Co was created in 2020, but at a glance you likely wouldn't have guessed that. And so was Blakesville Creamery, as their product sports some charming old-school illustrations. Despite Cooper Black being very on-trend, guitar makers Orangewood dropped it from their logo in favour of a hand-drawn one, while Mindful Chef is being the anti-HelloFresh and is sticking with their hand-drawn logo. And t-shirt printer Real Thread dropped their sans-serif logo for one that feels a bit more hipster. There are some rebrands and logos that have helped some brands to feel a bit more fun, like these examples for Casey's, Jim's and Jenny's. So looking through all of these brands from recent years, I think these image compilations are bullshit. They are cherry-picked examples, and they're basically memes. They don't tell the full story.
There are a ton of decent logo designs appearing every day. While some tech companies and fashion brands are following a very similar trend, ditching the slabs, scripts and serifs, it's clear that script, decorative, weird or hand-drawn logos aren't going anywhere. There's also nothing really wrong with using a reliable sans-serif, providing a brand has an ounce of creativity. You may not see the best use of sans-serifs with mainstream brands, but once again, there are so many great examples of these types of logos, you may have to look for them, but they are everywhere. Eurostar dropped their boring word mark in favour of something weird. It's very love it or hate it, but they took a risk and I personally love it. Most people would rather bitch about the stuff they don't like me, instead of celebrating the rebrands they do like. I find most people don't look at the whole brand anyway, and fixate on the logo.
Zendesk dropped their cartoon mascot for a sans-serif font and abstract approach. The brand was incredibly minimalist but very creative, and made great use of the elements it had.
MailChimp's rebrand may include a sans-serif logo, but the rest of the brand was great. And Spotify's logo may have helped to start a boring trend, but the brand is incredibly diverse and flexible.
And let's be honest, these old logos were not good.